Welcome to NatureHacker Mind. I am your host, NatureHacker. Thank you for joining me today on this Monday night. I hope everything's going well for you. Today I want to talk about just a little bit about things that I've been thinking about recently, and also about my time in a cult church called Faith Christian Church. So, one thing even before I get to what's been on my mind, what I think is that talking about what's on your mind and kind of keeping abreast of fresh dialogue and information and things from people is important, because I feel like, whether it's just the environment, the earth, the frequencies coming from the earth, the frequencies coming from outer space, whatever, we are all taking in, whether, microorganisms and whatnot, toxins, chemicals, everything. We're taking in things, and we're learning how to deal with it, either mentally, either physically, whatever. We're learning how to deal with it. It's like making a vaccine, and obviously there's a lot of things I don't like about modern big pharma vaccines, but the overall principle of a vaccine is that you give, let's say, an animal, let's say that there's a plague going around, right? You give an animal a little dose of that plague so that the animal makes antibodies, and then let's say you drink its milk or something, so that way you're putting the animal's immune system to work for you. Basically, you're using the animal to create antibodies to the plague or whatever, and then you're ingesting the antibodies, so it's helping you. So, in a similar way, we are all taking in life as it comes, and we are all adapting, we are all learning how to live with that, and so our words, what we talk about, is not only a reflection of that, but it can also contain, quote unquote, antibodies against the problems that are happening around us. We figure out solutions to problems. We think about things. That's figuring out things. So anyway, I think it's important to keep up and to. I like to when I go on YouTube or whatever, I like to watch fresh things that are just hot off the press. And the reason is because I know that it's going to contain, quote-unquote, antibodies. It's going to help me in my life right now, because other people around the world are going through the same things, and not necessarily that they would necessarily be teaching me exactly how to overcome certain things, which I endeavor to do that a lot on my NatureHacker channel. I try to teach you exact things, exactly how to help you. But also just thoughts, thoughts that come to your mind, things that are interesting to you, you learn something new, whatever it is. That is all fresh info, all fresh ideas that will help you with your situation, because we're all adaptive organisms. We're all going to adapt to the current situation. So, let's say I adapt by researching orca whales or something. Even though that has nothing to do with what I'm doing right now, it's like you learn lessons from it. And these lessons apply to everyone on Earth right now. So that's why it's important to share info, to share ideas, to share thoughts and all of that. And that's why I'm making this channel, it's another facet of helping each other and building each other up. So yeah, about orca, I saw something online about orcas. I started reading about it and captivity and blah blah blah, and some of the things that I gleaned is that orcas are very dangerous creatures. They're like wolves of the sea, and when we put them in these aquariums with a trainer in there, like from SeaWorld, that's literally as dangerous or more dangerous than putting a guy in a bear cage and having the bear do tricks. It's like to have these trainers in there. The orcas, they look nice. They look, if you're an untrained human, if you're, a domesticated human, an orca just looks like a friendly big, teddy bear or whatever, like a panda, and it looks harmless. But in reality, these things are way more dangerous than bears, so it's like, would you stand in a cage with a bear? No, then you shouldn't stand in a cage with the orca. So that's one thing. And another thing is that, in the past they had the orcas doing tricks, like balancing balls, I don't know, or, jumping, or, flapping around as they stand up type of thing in the water. But now people aren't as turned on by that anymore. It's like the world has gotten more serious. It's after World War II, and even after World War I, there was ages of prosperity where America had had a monopoly on world trade. So everybody else was destroyed. America was the only one making stuff, so we did really well. Everybody drank a lot, partied a lot, liked watching animals do tricks and stupid stuff like that, while the rest of the world suffered. So there was this dichotomy. It's like in America, everybody was just laughing it up, having a good time. Everywhere else in the world, people were struggling to get enough food to survive. So now what's happening is the world is equalizing. That pressure that was built up in America is equalizing, and now we're pushing for another war. Obviously it's obvious to see that America is the aggressor on the world stage right now, trying to get another war, because we know that if we destroy more economies, that we could gain the monopoly again. So that's kind of that's the ebb and flow, is that they start wars, they bring in a monopoly, and then they bet on the downside as it starts to fall. Like right now, as it's falling, a company like eBay, the board of directors are all betting on its fall, and they're creating policies that will make eBay fail, so that they can use their own companies to buy up eBay's assets dirt cheap. So it's like controlled demolition of companies happening right now, and as the stock falls, it makes it so that these people positioned can just buy up all of the dirt cheap assets, and they have incentive to make the companies fall. It's like the board of directors. I don't agree with corporations at all. I think corporations are illegal. Like our Constitution originally designated corporations as illegal, except if they were basically non-profit working for the public good, and even then they had to be temporary, and they had to get a charter to do one certain purpose that would finish, like build a railway, and then it would be done and the corporation would be disbanded. But over time, corporations have metastasized and become zombies. They've been zombified, like immortal cell lines. They've become zombies. So corporations are bad, but even if the easiest way to reform corporations right now without destroying them entirely, which they deserve to be all destroyed, is to make it so that their board members are their largest stakeholders. So in order to get a seat on the board, you have to be the largest stakeholder, basically. And have to stay the largest stakeholder and not be able to sell any shares. If you do, you get your seat off the board, because these people come to the board, they have nothing to lose. They have a company, they want to self-destruct the company they're on the board of in order to profit in their other companies. So, so it's a very huge conflict of interest right now, and so that is where we are at. And getting back to the orcas, so they're very deadly dangerous, and they're like wolves of the sea. They hunt in packs. They actually kill whales and everything. They eat whales, baby whales especially. So they're very, I don't know, I don't like them, and but anyway, one guy was, I guess studying them, and he goes to the seal area, and where the orcas will wait in the water for seals to go in and then eat the seals. And he goes and he kind of stomps his way into the water, and an orca comes up to him, and just kind of, this is in the wild, and the orca just opens its mouth kind of like a growl type thing and stuff, and then it kind of looks like a little playful and stuff, and so he goes over, closer to it and stuff, and so he's been doing this for, I guess, a couple years, but he's basically saying that it looked like the orca was gauging him, trying to gauge him by, opening its mouth and seeing what his reaction would be and things like this. And that makes sense because, these orcas are hunters. They're like bears. They hunt for food, for meat and stuff. So, the orcas see thousands and thousands of seals and penguins and all of that, but they almost never see humans. So when they see a human, they don't know what to think. So a lot of times people will think, oh, humans are special. Look, the animals are afraid of us, or the animals are confused by us. And it's not because humans are special. It's because, for one, humans are quite capable. We're the only animal that I can think of that we're the most maneuverable animal, kind of flexible and maneuverable and adaptable. So we are very formidable, even against things that are bigger than us. We're formidable. So yes, lots of animals will be afraid of us just because they can see that. They can see that we're not confined to having 4 legs on the ground. We have both of our arms free. So what we can do, even on like lions and stuff, people can kill them, or at least prevent them from hurting them, by getting on the animal's back and choking it and using your legs around the animal's torso. And as long as the animal doesn't crush you to death, you can pretty much choke it out and get away. So humans are very formidable. There are some things that we wouldn't be able to quite do that with. Maybe with a bear, we could get up on its neck and make it fall, and we could jump off of it before it crushed us, things like that. So we're very formidable, and we can use tools since we have our arms free and everything. But animals, so they see us and they see that we are formidable in those ways, but they also look at us and they don't know how to attack us, how to approach us. They don't know our psychology to be able to get us, So, for example, this killer whale was teaching its young to be able to go up on the beach to catch seals. So, to basically beach itself and then to get back off. So the mom was training the baby on how to beach itself and get back into the water, because they know that that's how they can catch seals. But as far as people, they never encounter people, so they don't know what tactics to use to get people. And they know that we don't have that much fat on us. It's like hunting for, a skinny rabbit, or if you want to get, some other animal that's fatter, So, it's like the difference, from them, for an orca to go after a human, it's like for a human to go after a rabbit, where the human could just go after like a pig or a cow, and the pig or the cow to the orca is like the baby whale. So first of all, we're not that big on its priority list, and secondly, there's just not that many of us for them to come up with a plan to get us. But there have been more cases recently of animals stalking humans. Like bears. Bears have been stalking humans a lot more recently. And what happens is, once a bear kills a human and eats them, it starts to learn. It's like, this isn't too bad of a meal. It starts to learn people's psychology and how to attack them successfully. So that's why they always go and kill bears that kill humans, because those bears now are starting to learn how to kill humans. They don't want that to be mastered by the bears and to be taught to their kids and everything like that. So So that's why they killed them. So it's not necessarily that we're special, that we're like higher spiritually or anything like that. It's that, for one, our physiology is very adaptable, and that animals can see that. And secondly, they don't see us very often, so they haven't developed strategies to hunt us. But that's changing now, and I believe we're, as far as in prophecy, we are in Revelation 6, verse 8, and the pale horseman of that verse is Comet Ison that already came, and then Hades will follow soon after Ison, it's said in that verse. And Hades, I believe, is Nibiru, and it will come before 2020 in order to kind of to stick to the timeline that Hades comes quickly after the Pale Horseman. So that's coming, and in this age we will see sword, we will see famine, we will see plague, and we will see death by wild animals. This is the only time since for about 2,000 years where wild animals are going to be a very significant threat for humans. So animals are going to start to hunt us, because this is going to be a very hard time, and the animals are going to learn to hunt us. So bears, cats, not house cats, but like lions, bobcats, mountain lions, whatever, and also Bigfoot. We know that bear attacks are getting up, are increasing, and probably mountain lion attacks are increasing too. But we're also noticing more Bigfoot type activity. If you look at a book called, or you can just Google it or YouTube it, called Missing 411, there's a lot of mysterious disappearances and deaths in national parks. And I believe a lot of these can be attributed to Bigfoot. And there have been a lot of sightings of Bigfoot basically stalking people. And it works in a way different than most animals. It will go around you, and it will cut you off. Because Bigfoots are very mobile and more agile than something like a bear. So a bear will kind of stick to its own territory, and it might charge you, it might attack straight up or whatever, but Bigfoots will walk, maybe 50, 100 feet away from you. They'll walk around you, and so they can cut off your path and stuff, and they can force you in other directions. And so Bigfoots are, I think, the most dangerous animals out there, because it would be very difficult to outmaneuver Bigfoot, since they also have their arms free. And it's a type of hominid. I mean, if you look at, in the past there were hundreds and hundreds of types of hominids, so it shouldn't be that far-fetched to think that there could be another hominid still alive. Not to mention Bigfoot, but also Homo capensis is another hominid that may be alive, and this hominid is even smarter than us. So, yes, anyway, Homo capensis, I believe, have been farming us for thousands of years, and I believe they are the ones behind the Rothschilds, Rockefeller type things going on. So, anyway, so wild animals, Bigfoot attacks are going to get more common. Bear attacks, things like that. Orcas, things like that. So that's where it brings me back, is the orca thing. Brings me back to that. Revelation 6:8, death by wild animals. So we need to be aware of that. So I've talked about in my past, or in about maybe 2 podcasts ago, I talked about how I had a really bad spring break, and then I joined this church, which turned out to be a cult. So I got into a little bit of how I joined it and stuff, and now I just want to kind of give you a brief overview of my time there. So I spent from 2006, April 20th, 2006, to and that was another reason I joined, was because it was 420. I didn't want to smoke weed anymore because it affected me badly and made me paranoid and anxious and all this sorts of stuff. But all my friends, I had a few groups of friends, and each group of friends was calling me to hang out that night at 420, and smoke weed and all that stuff. And I didn't want to do that. And so I was having a Bible study, and I was basically like, I'm ready to do this because I don't want to live the life I was living anymore. I didn't want to do that stuff anymore. And that was all my friends did. So it's like, how do you leave all of your friends to start a new life? It's like, the only way I could have imagined doing that is to become a Christian and just renounce all my old friends. So that's what I did. I didn't call them back. I basically just left all of my friends just out in the cold. And, they weren't good examples anyway, but, I guess I kind of used the Christian thing to be able to do that, to just totally cut off contact with them. So that's one of the reasons why this cult church was somewhat of a fit for me, is because I wanted to separate myself. I thought that I was superior to other people. I thought that I was morally superior or whatever to other people. So, and that was fed a lot by my family life, to where my parents were just very immature. My mom, my mom was just very obsessed with money, and she cared way too much about money and appearances and things like that, what people thought. And then my dad was just very immature. He'd just been straight out of college into the workforce and just stuck in there his whole life, never really had a chance to actually mature. And, that's all part of the globalist agenda, is to have men that never grow up. And that is what happens. And I'm more mature than my dad is right now. My dad, he's retired, and now he's hopefully starting to grow up for the first time, and learn that, life isn't all just about sex and things like that. And, my mom left him, and he just seeking after women constantly. Then my mom sought after money constantly, so they were very, very immature. So that didn't help. That definitely made me think that hate society, hate the American lifestyle, because my parents were so superficial and immature. And so that also gave me a higher propensity to joining a cult, because I thought myself morally superior and that everybody else was bad and whatever. So and then with my friends, and then at that point in my life, I wanted to isolate myself and get away from my friends who I felt were bad influences. So that also made me more susceptible to joining a cult, because a cult is like, you have to leave it tells you have to leave all your friends, you have to leave all of your life behind. So that was exactly what I wanted at that point. So I was also susceptible from that. So from there, I had a friend who also joined the church, a couple weeks before I did. So we just hung out a lot. After that, we played Frisbee together. So that was a great, fun time, so we spent a lot of time together there, playing Frisbee on the mall of the university and stuff like that. So that was all fun and everything. And we also went out and basically helped homeless people, kind of fed homeless people, talked to them, spent time with them. So that was great too. And so then I met friend Kevin at church through that friend Billy, and we did stuff together. We went and helped the homeless and things like that together, and so we became pretty good friends. And so then the church kind of tried to get me more involved, me and Billy more involved, and Kevin was pretty involved, I guess, at that point. And so they had me go to their, club meetings. There was this club that was a liaison between the university and the church. So I started going to those, and I would always show up early and help out, and stay late and help people clean up, and without being asked and things like that. And they really liked that, and so they made me vice president that next year. And there were elections, quote unquote, for picking, but those elections weren't real. They actually just chose who they wanted, and then those were the people who were allowed to run in the election. So yeah, it was fixed elections. But since I was the chosen one, hey, I didn't mind it, I guess. So anyway, so I did the vice president thing, and it started to get to be a lot of work. Then I became a roadie, quote unquote, for the Sunday morning service. So then I had to wake up at 6:30. I had to be to church at, is it 7 or 8? It was 8. I think I had to be there at 8. Okay, so I had to be there at 8, so that means I had to leave at like 7:30, so probably like 6:30 I woke up. 7:30 I left, 8 o'clock I got there, and then 9 o'clock we finished setting up, and then 9 o'clock, and then my minister made me come and pick him up, because there was this policy to where the pastor would not let the male ministers, and this is still a policy, the pastor would not let the male ministers have a car, so only their wives could drive. The men could drive, but they would have to leave the car at home with their wife. And I think that this is from a very nefarious thing. I think that the cult leader, the pastor, the main dude, he didn't want the men to be able to come home during the day, so that in case he wanted to visit one of their wives, he could, and not have to worry about them coming home and finding him. So I think that was going on, that type of, I don't know what you call that, polygamy type thing, I don't know. So I think that was going on, but anyway, so they don't have cars, so then they had to get me to give him a ride to church. So I have to go to campus, because they would wait for their guests, because they're recruiting people off campus who don't have cars. So they would wait for their guests, and then they would have one of people like me come and pick them up with the guests and bring them all to church. So I was doing that. So from 6:30 all the way up until 10, I was, working, getting ready, doing whatever for church. And then from 10 to 12 was church. And then I would break down from 12 to 1, and then a lot of time, every time, everybody met for lunch, giant groups of us would go to lunch, probably like 20 of us to certain restaurants each time. So that was from roughly 1 to 2. So from 6:30 to 2, and then, drive home 2:30. So from 6:30 to 2:30 is 6:30, 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, 12:30, 1:30, 2:30. That's 8 hours every Sunday I was booked up, okay, doing stuff for church. Now, that's just one of the days. And then, so that's 8 hours on Sunday. And then Sunday night, there would likely be things going on, either with a church house meeting, or a club meeting or something like that. So that's another couple hours. So that's 10 hours basically every Sunday. And then every Saturday, there was something called a prayer meeting. So we went to camp. I reserved rooms at the university so that our church could come in and have these giant meetings on campus. So, basically what the church did is they used students like me to reserve rooms for the entire church. And we were supposed to be reserving these rooms for the club, but they had nothing to do with the club. It was all just a church meeting. So I was a little weirded by that, to have to do that. I think I might have thought that was a little weird at some point. This isn't a club meeting, this is a church meeting, but I'm pretending like it's a club meeting, so, it's kind of dishonest, and, I'm supposed to be a Christian. I mean, isn't this supposed to be honest? So it was weird. But anyway, that was another thing, and I had to also set up for that. So that was at 5 p.m. every Saturday, so we would get there at 3 p.m. And I had to get there earlier because I had to open it up. So I had to basically have the key, or I had to get the university police to come open it for me and all this, and it was a struggle. And not only did I have to do that, but I had to set up, and I had to not only just set up what they brought, but I had to bring the stuff to set up for my little thing. I was running a projector, so I had to bring the projector, I had to bring the laptop and all of that. So that was 3:30. I had to be there at 2:30. It started at 5, and then it was 1 hour long. And then afterwards I had to break down, so that took about an hour. So that's 6 o'clock. And then there was always things going on that night too, so another couple hours. So that's, let's call it 8. So that's 2:33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. So that's roughly 5.5, 6 hours on Saturdays that I was booked up. So that's about 16 hours on the weekend. And this is while I am also working at Olive Garden, which was very stressful, and I was also taking organic chemistry, very difficult classes, and what else? Oh, and I was running Wildcats for Christ, the club, so that was another, I'd say, 10 hours a week, Wildcats for Christ. So we're at about 26 hours, and that's just club and church stuff. But then there was also meetings during the week. So there was weekly Bible studies, which was a couple hours, and there was time that you were supposed to spend on campus evangelizing, so that was about 3 hours, so it's 5 hours. And then there's covenant groups, which is another 2 hours, so that's we're at 7 hours. And what else? I guess that's pretty much it. About 7 hours during the week, not including driving and parking and all that. And then there was also, other things that people from the church hosted, like frisbee nights and things. That was another couple hours. So, we're looking about 10 hours during the week. So, 10 hours with Wildcats for Christ, 10 hours during the week, 6 hours on Sunday, so we're at 26, plus 10 hours 6 hours on Saturday, 10 hours on Sunday, so that's right about 36 hours of stuff I was doing for the church every week. 36 hours. And I was also working 20 hours a week at Olive Garden. So that's 56 hours right there. And then I was taking, 15 hours of classes, so that's 15 hours of actually in class, so that's 71 hours, plus homework and studying, which is another 20 hours, which I never really got to, so that's 91 hours I was booked for. 91 hours a week. And keep in mind, I had insomnia at that point. I could not sleep more than 4 hours a night. So I would sleep 4 hours and I would just lay in bed trying to fall back asleep, unable to do it. So I was doing like 91 hours or whatever of work a week on 4 hours of sleep a night, and just and I'm very ADD too, so I would always be, thinking about things, researching things, just things on my own, things that I cared about, like health and things like that, inventions. So it was just utterly horrid time, just utterly destroying myself. And they didn't care, they would just do as much as they could give me to do, it's just, that's the way they were with everybody. They just kind of pushed everybody to just do as much possible, because we're all free labor, it's like they're getting so much work out of us for absolutely free. So that was pretty much my time there. It wasn't like that the entire 6 years, but I would say a good 3 of the years were about that stressful, maybe 2 at a minimum. 2 years were that stressful. So anyway, I'll talk more about that later on, just basically scratching the surface on it. But thanks for listening to Nature Hacker Mind. I'll see you tomorrow.